He's back. We'll talk about Steve Perry's return. He's rehearsing. We'll talk about it. Coming right up. Hello, everybody. Gary Stuckey here for another episode of Steve Perry News and Journey News and all that good stuff. Hey, it's exciting news here today, people, about Steve Perry. So picture this. It's all over it's all over the internet now, but picture you're recording an album in a studio, singing, that's all in your mind. You're already feeling good, and all of a sudden a guy runs in and starts singing with you to help you. Maybe you get mad and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" But not if the guy is Steve Perry. So in Los Angeles, yesterday or day before, I believe, Steve Perry does just that. He runs into the studio of the lead singer of Toad the Wet Sprocket. You remember that band from the 90s. And the lead singer's name is Glenn Phillips. And he was with his band recording, and Steve Perry shows up, who's also rehearsing next door. I think ELO is next door. But Glenn posted everything about it online this morning, and you got Steve there singing. There's a little clip. Go check it out on Toad the Wet Sprocket, their website. He sounds really good. He's about to come out with that album, people. I know the naysayers are getting nervous and sweating, but it's happening. Stuff that I've been saying. I said that he would, be mentioning something or talking about something this, week, possibly. And I said he'd be making appearances. You'd be seeing him, and suddenly, here he is. So he's rehearsing for that new album. It's coming out very soon. People, get ready, get excited. And speaking of Steve Perry and Journey, over on Twitter, I've been talking to Schon. Well, not directly, but he's been tweeting some things and talking about an interview that happened within the past week. And he mentioned Steve Perry's, the reason why Steve Perry he probably wouldn't return to Journey. He said because of the vocals. I mean, and the songs are kind of high, and it would hurt his voice, maybe, or if he sang something like that, like he maybe couldn't reach those notes anymore. That's what he was trying to say, maybe. And I had responded to Neil on Twitter and said, give Steve a chance, and his new album's coming out, and possibly, you might be wowed because, and I'm sure he will be wowed. That's what I'm telling everybody. When Steve does release this album, everybody's going to be like, "Wow, I doubted this guy. He sounds great." So I was hitting around to Neil that give Steve a chance to prove that this voice is going to be awesome. He might be jumping on his bandwagon and saying, "Hey, we need you back, Steve," because this is good stuff. Don't doubt is what I keep saying, and a lot of people are doubting. And I've been saying some things, and it's been coming to pass. So don't doubt Steve Perry. He can show up anywhere at any time and start singing on your songs. But anyway, Schon, though, if you're watching, and I believe he is, yeah, give Steve Perry a chance. Listen to that new album. It's coming out very soon. And another thing I was reading about Schon in the past, I was reading an old article from Guitar School magazine, I think back in '92. He had mentioned that he tried to get Steve Perry to sing songs that were really up there. They're really hard to sing. And he pushed Steve, and that's something I've been thinking about. Steve is not a rock singer, like a heavy metal, hard rock. That's not his thing. He is more R&B. He is more, Sam Cooke like. and he rocks and things like that. But Neil had said that they were doing Edge of the Blade, and he really got him to, he really pushed him to sing that. And he said Steve wasn't used to that kind of singing. And Jonathan Cain's not, that kind of player either. So Jonathan Cain, Steve Perry are more of, laid back and, R&B and soft music, and that, and Neil was just, trying to, push Steve because he's a guitar player and he plays heavier, and that's the kind of stuff he wanted. And I think that Neil now is looking back and thinking about how he pushed Steve and to sing those songs in his voice. It kind of damaged his voice after a time, and maybe that's why Steve, left in the first place. He was burnt out about his mom dying and everything else, plus his voice. I mean, you sing like that night after night in a voice that you're not, it's not your real natural voice. You're pushing yourself. I mean, he did it, but he really pushed himself. And I think maybe Neil was seeing that maybe he had something to do with that. Not blaming Neil. I'm not saying it in a negative way. But maybe Neil was understanding that, hey, Steve, he really pushed his voice. And that's why Neil is now saying maybe he and Steve can do R&B, kind of, throwing out that, you know, olive branch, so to speak, and I think he's setting up Steve to say, hey, I still believe in you, but I'm not going to push you anymore. Maybe it's if to say if you want to do heavier songs or harder songs, that's up to you. But I'm offering this little side project here. I'm thinking that's what Neil is doing. He's just offering some stuff up. And I think if you take people, it's all about how you read into things. I like to read into certain interviews and really get behind what's happening. And a lot of people take it for face value, and they go, yeah, Neil don't believe in Steve. Man, Steve's voice is shot. It's never going to happen, Journey. You can't do that. You got to believe. But I think Neil is just saying, hey, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to start slow, and maybe if I say, Steve, do you want to do a little song together, maybe a little album, R&B, and then Steve takes the bite, then later it turns into something else. But I don't think that Neil's going to just rush out there and ask him, hey, man, come back to Journey, because that's, too much. But like I said, I think Neil is feeling some guilt. But that's understandable. But at least he's reaching out now, and Jonathan Cain is, and they're trying to get Steve back. And when they hear this new album coming out, they're going to be wild. And hey, the next thing we may hear after that new album is a reunion, which initially started back in the Trial by Fire era. In that time, that was not going to be an album. It was going to be just a small reunion of a few little, concerts, and that was going to be it. But they talked Steve into doing an album. And then we all know what happened after that with his hip. But that was the plan back then. That was, 20 years ago, 22 years ago. And I think that's what's going to happen now, is this is going to lead up to a reunion and a final shows for Journey maybe. And Arnell, he's already said that he's going home. He wants to go home. So who's to say? We'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, Steve Perry's back. He's rehearsing. New album coming out soon. Will there be some Journey stuff along with it? We shall see. Don't stop believing, everybody. Hey, oh yeah, and one more thing before I leave. I've been getting some help from a woman named Pamela Atwood from Connecticut. And we talk about Steve Perry stuff all the time, and I just want to give her a mention. She's like the main person that believes in me and Steve Perry and all of these things that I've been talking about. I mean, look, we're like on the same page. So I just wanted to mention her because she's helped me in my ideas and everything. But anyway, don't stop believing, everybody. Steve Perry's back. He's not going away. You don't go away. Don't stop believing.